Lane Kiffin brings in another player that was, just in the NFL. That makes sense. I have bad news for everybody that wants Lane Kiffin to fail.
You are Locked On College Football with Spencer McLaughlin, your daily podcast on all things college football. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Locked On College Football. I am your host, Spencer McLaughlin. Thank you all so much for making this your first listen or a first view every day. It is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, the number one sports podcast network out there. Thank you all, especially my everydayers, for helping make that the case. Football happens this week, by the way, college football, this Saturday, August 29th. Those games will be talked about this week here on the show. Alabama and Florida have named their starting quarterbacks. Who's got a better situation? Might not be who you think. That's coming up on today's show. And an underrated team in the Big Ten, or will it just be the same old story for the Minnesota Golden Gophers? I discuss all of that on today's show. But first, the LSU Tigers once again making headlines. And not necessarily for football reasons, but also for football reasons. Because now there's been a second player, like a second spitter in the bushes, as Seinfeld would say, that has come back to play for LSU. That was just, in the NFL. And look, Lane Kiffin doesn't care. He spoke about it publicly, said, at the end of the day, these are guys that are either getting recruited here or elsewhere. He might be right. Ryan Day was quoted as saying, we might consider those guys. I don't know if it was a serious remark from Ryan Day. I don't think Ryan Day feels like his roster needs to pull guys that were not able to make NFL training camps. Do I think it's good? No. I don't think this is a good state for college sports and college football in particular, which is, of course, what we mostly talk about here on the show. I don't think it's a great place to be. It is good for the sport, for everybody involved, if you have a clear, distinct line. College sports are over here. Here's the line. You go over it, you are now in professional sports. That doesn't mean you can't get paid while playing college sports. That much has been made very, very clear. But if you are hoping, with all of this news, as LSU looks like one of the villains in college football because Lane Kiffin's their head coach and he abandoned Ole Miss, all of which is true, by the way, I've got bad news for you. I think they're going to be very good. Their roster got better this week, and their roster was already ridiculously good. Now, I will remind folks that the AP coming into the season is much higher on LSU than I am. They have the Tigers at number 11. Now, that is because AP voters and myself look at top 25 polls differently. They view it as we are going to put our subjective opinions about a team and projections about what we think they can be, and maybe even where we had them going into the season, we're going to put all that into a poll. My view is completely different. It is, what have you actually earned? And going into the season, there are only two things to grade teams on, and you can choose not to care about preseason polls. That's perfectly fine. I think there's a lot of interesting ways to discuss college football with a preseason poll. That's, of course, my job. But I'm just looking at it saying, hey, there are still things you can evaluate for a team before they have played a game to frame expectations. So in Spencer's poll, LSU is number 20, 9 spots behind the AP, because LSU hasn't played a single game with Lane Kiffin. Now, if I were to treat the LSU Tigers as the AP voters have treated them to net them out to be the number 11 team in the country going into the season, they would be pretty high on my list. The roster talent is immense. And in full seasons at Ole Miss, Lane Kiffin failed to win 10 or more games one time. That was in 2021. He's won 10 or more games every year since. There is a part of me that wonders whether LSU will absolutely implode. And if they do, there will be plenty of people that will mock Lane Kiffin, laugh at Lane Kiffin. They'll mostly be in Oxford, Mississippi. But there will be plenty outside of college football, or in the college football world outside of the great state of Mississippi, that will do that as well. So I'm not going to be one to come on here and say crazy things like Lane Kiffin has to make the playoff or he should be on the hot seat or that should be. It's fair to have that as the goal, but just because you don't achieve every single goal in a given season doesn't mean the season was an outright failure. I don't think missing the playoff would necessarily be a failure. What if LSU goes 9-3, is on the brink of the playoff, and they don't make it? Is it black and white? Is that what we're talking about here? That's not how I view it. Because most coaches, it turns out, wait for it, are not Curt Cignetti. Curt Cignetti's a better coach than Lane Kiffin. Don't make that comparison. LSU's a better job than Indiana, without question. Curt Cignetti's a significantly better football coach. I know, because he won a national championship in much less time than Lane Kiffin has needed so far, and he hasn't won one yet. But the bad news is, for those that want Lane Kiffin to lose, they want him to fail, they want it to implode, I don't think it's going to happen. So here's the schedule. It is difficult, shall we say, particularly in the month of November, depending on how you view the Tennessee Volunteers, who I'm starting to warm up to, shall we say. So they open with Clemson, arguably the biggest game of the week in week 1. That's on September 5th. That's a week from Saturday, by the way. That's how late these players are getting added to the cycle. So I think they're going to beat Clemson because I'm scorched earth on Clemson. Louisiana Tech, yeah, that's a win. Ole Miss, my favorite game to watch going into this season. The one I am most excited to view as a college football fan. Neutral arbiter of college football, some would say. Roman Tomashoff of Locked On Huskies would not, but that's a discussion for a different day. I think they're going to beat Ole Miss in Oxford. Boy, that's a coin flip sort of game. Then they come back home against Texas A&M. I think that's one of their 2 losses. And I feel pretty good about them going 3-1 in that stretch. I don't think they put it all together. And look, my confidence in LSU and Lane Kiffin with this roster is indeed rooted in the idea of Sam Leavitt not just being healthy, but staying healthy throughout the course of the season. I don't think Hassan Longstreet's coming in and doing a Trinidad Shambliss. And to be fair, I wouldn't have thought Trinidad Shambliss could have done a Trinidad Shambliss, which is a noun that I just made up. Not a proper noun, which is what a name is. So, for all you grammar sharks out there. McNeese at home, yeah, there's a Will Wade joke in here somewhere. I don't really know where it is or how to craft it, and I don't really care that much. Kentucky at home. That's an away game. Apologies. They go to Kentucky. They will be fine. Between first-year head coaches, I'm taking Lane Kiffin over Will Stein. Lane's done this before. Will Stein has not. Middle of the season, maybe Kentucky's more dangerous. They had a great transfer portal offseason. But for this year, no, I'll take LSU. Then they play Mississippi State at home. Yeah, they'll win that game. Then they'll play Auburn away. Yeah, that's the easy stretch right there. That 4-game stretch. From October 3rd to October 24th, nobody outside of Baton Rouge is going to care what LSU does unless there's a score that nobody expects. One of those days that we are oh so close to having where you go, oh man, I don't care about this team this week. Man, this is a weak slate of college football. What's the score? In the 3rd quarter. Whoa. It happens every single year. I can't wait for it to come back. After the bye, they host Alabama. I think they win that game. Then they host Texas. I will take Texas. Again, I think a split there is very, very reasonable. And this is, in essence, I'm going to call this a 4 2.5 games that everyone really cares about. Ole Miss, Texas A&M, Alabama, Texas. We'll see on Tennessee. I'm warming up. That's a half interest level right now where I'm kind of in an in-between phase with a particular team. Clemson is also in between, though I'm lower on Clemson than I am on Tennessee. I think Tennessee's a better team going into this season, both on paper and when the games actually start getting played. I think they're a better team. So I think LSU goes 10-2. I think they're in the college football playoff. Would it shock me if they go 9-3? No. You have some coin flip games in there. Bounce of ball, one call, one play, one kick. I can't wait for those things to actually start, being a part of our lives once again. So leave your thoughts in the YouTube comments below. Am I too high on LSU? Am I too low on LSU? Are they going 12-0 and making it all happen this year? I don't think they're a national championship contender. I think they're absolutely, because of the offseason, they've had a college football playoff contender. That doesn't change where I'd put them in Spencer's poll going into the year because they have got to prove it first. I have been wrong before. Not often, but it has been known to happen, from time to time. So it's just something that can take place that I guess I have to account for. Aaron Philo at Florida, Keelon Russell at Alabama. These two guys are starting quarterbacks in the SEC. They face very different seasons. First, this episode brought to you by our friends over at Kalshi. Before the season kicks off, everyone's making predictions. Who wins the division? Who makes the playoffs? Who's lifting the trophy at season end? On Kalshi, America's #1 prediction market platform, you can trade those predictions in a live market. You can trade any sort of prediction. If you want to trade LSU to win the national championship, you can. If you want to trade LSU to miss the college football playoff, you can do that too. And on Kalshi, you're trading against peers in a live market, meaning there's no house. And as the probability changes, you can buy in and out of your position. Trade the draft pick, the game, and more on Kalshi. Download the Kalshi app. Use code LOCKEDON to get $10 when you trade $10. Kalshi, Kalshi. Trade on anything. 18 plus only. Restrictions and eligibility requirements apply. Event contract trading involves risk and may not be suitable for all investors. Kalshi products are not available in all jurisdictions. Prices, values, and available markets may differ from those mentioned. For more information, see kalshi.com/regulatory. Not one, but two starting quarterbacks officially named after battles that have, I guess, been going on since spring. Aaron Philo will start for the Florida Gators. Keelon Russell will start for the Alabama Crimson Tide. That's not necessarily surprising. I still have a question, though, for Chris Gordy of Locked On SEC joining me here. Chris, you look at the entire conference, so I decided to bring you on the show instead of trying to talk to Luke and Brandon at the same time. And let's be real, no one wants to talk to Brandon anyway. But so I look at these two guys, and the situations they're coming into this year are very different. Can you imagine a realistic world in which at the end of this year, Florida feels better about their quarterback situation than Alabama?
Yeah, I mean, it certainly could happen. I think it's two teams that are very different. I think Florida this year is kind of playing with house money. It's year one of John Summerall at Florida, and it's a very interesting situation because there's talent everywhere. Jaden Baugh is one of the best running backs in the country. They've retooled that offensive line, which, by the way, it sounds like they're going to have two guards playing tackle, so they're basically going to have four guards in the center. So I don't know. We'll see on that front.
I love the receiver room. The
receiver room's great.
The receiver room.
And the defense, I think, is going to be spunky. We know, John Summerall, that's his forte. And so then you go, well, really the one missing piece is quarterback. And it's been a good battle between Tramel Jones and Aaron Philo. I think Philo ultimately won it because of the familiarity with being with Buster Faulkner, the new OC at Georgia Tech. But Tramel Jones made a push, man. I mean, he made some plays throughout this fall and the spring. So, I think the mission for him is going to be, and I hate to say game manage, but just don't mess it up for us. Don't throw a bunch of turnovers. Don't put us in bad spots. If he just takes care of the football and executes the offense, puts in their playmakers' hands, I think Aaron Philo can be very good. But the question is, what's the ceiling for Florida? I mean, is it 8-4? 8-4 would be tremendous given what Florida has been the last few years. But you talk to some folks in Gator country, and they set their sights even higher and go, man, we heard from the minute we heard John Summerall talk, we were bought in. We're ready for this guy. We're ready to, sky's the limit for us. So we'll see where they go this year. Again, the schedule is pretty brutal, but they do get a little bit of a landing strip, the first two weeks of just FAU and Campbell before they finally get an SEC play. And so it's a good ramp up for Philo, but do listen to what John Summerall said. He said, this isn't a guarantee stamp of approval for the whole year. If Philo falls flat on his face these first 2 weeks, they're going to put Tramel Jones in there and let him show what he can do. And if he's good, they can make a flip. So we'll see. But at least for week one, it's going to be Philo.
Let's give a snapshot of Keelon Russell on the other side, because much higher expectations at Alabama, where they can, I think, reasonably say, hey, we should not just be in the playoff, but we should be winning a couple of games, because anything less than reaching the quarterfinals of the college football playoff would be a regression from a season ago. And so that's okay. I'm pro pet on this show, Gordy. Pets are always welcome. I'm dog over cat, but I'm not necessarily anti-cat. Pets are fantastic. But I think that for Alabama, there's so much more pressure on Keelon Russell. Between these two guys, Russell's got the higher ceiling. The physical traits are, I think, much more dynamic for Alabama's signal caller here. But man, for this particular season, I like that you brought up house money, because that is what Florida, in my view, is playing with. You know, if they miss a bowl game, and that's what I've predicted them to do, I think they're going 5-7, because I agree the schedule is pretty darn tough. If Florida misses a bowl game this year, I'm not judging John Summerall that harshly. I might not even judge Aaron Philo that harshly, depending on how things go, or Tramel Jones if they make the change. But Keelon Russell on the other side, I don't think there's going to be a lot of grace. I don't know that there should be. He's waited a little bit and was a super highly rated recruit, and this is Kalen DeBoer. This is a guy that has success with quarterbacks every single season of college football. He's been a head coach. His quarterback has been good. So if Keelon Russell, even in the SEC, comes out his first year starting and isn't very good, then I think that'll kind of be a tip to all of us that he might not be as good as the recruiting ranking suggests.
Yeah, I think it's important to continue to remind people this isn't Nick Saban's Alabama. This is a different Alabama. Kalen DeBoer is just trying to do the best he can, but you know, some of those fans, the expectations still are championship or bust every year. And so it's a little bit hard, but I think if you're a realistic Alabama fan, what you have to put into your mind is Keelon Russell, for being this freak athlete, this 5-star top recruit that came in last year, they didn't play him barely at all last year. Austin Mack was the backup, and Ty Simpson, as good as he was, they were in close games every week, it felt like. So they were never blowing somebody out that would have allowed to put the third string quarterback in to get a bunch of reps. So as a result, Keelon Russell didn't play much last year. I even said last offseason, I was like, put some packages in for him. He's a freak talent. Get him out there. They never did that. So this year is going to be a get your feet wet year, and it's going to be a growing year, and it's going to be a learning process and all that. And I think whatever his ceiling or his floor is this year, I think they're going to go through some trials and tribulations, but I think 2027 is the year for Alabama. That's the year where you say Keelon Russell comes back. They're going to bring back a bunch of those pieces from that team. And I think you're talking about he could be a preseason Heisman favorite in 27. Alabama should be a top 5 preseason team that year. But I think this year, you know, look, the hope is go 10-2 and make the playoff. But I just look at the schedule and just young quarterbacks that are inexperienced, getting their feet wet. I think he's going to go through some struggles, particularly early. I mean, going to Kentucky in week 2 is not going to be a cakewalk. Florida State is an improved team. South Carolina's improved with a new OC. So I just think Alabama's going to be in some close games, and maybe Keelon Russell makes some mistakes that cost them. But again, that doesn't mean this kid's a bust. It doesn't mean, you know, he's not going to be good eventually. It just means I think he's going to have some ups and downs this year.
So when I went through and made my record prediction for Alabama, I went into it thinking, and I've had this with a couple of teams, before I'd broken down the schedule, I went into it just knowing what, you know, the team has gone through this offseason, what they were last year and such. I went into it thinking, I think this is an 8 or 9 win team that's going to miss the playoff. But I look at the schedule, Gordy, and Kalen DeBoer in regular season big games so far has been really, really good for the most part, especially last year. And I think they will lose to Georgia. I think they'll probably lose to LSU. But between Tennessee and Texas A&M, I mean, we're not taking Alabama to go 0-2 in those games, right? Like, it's not going to be a 4-game losing skid, is it? Or do you think that I'm just suffering from brand bias there, and it's the it's the cursive A or whatever language thing it's written in, whatever, on the crimson background there?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit, people are still skewed by the logo. Oh, Alabama, of course they're going to be awesome. And I mean, they're going to be good, but I just don't think they're going to be, you know, look, everybody picked Texas and Georgia to play for the SEC title. And I think if you go by the votes, a lot of other people may have picked Oklahoma as third. I mean, there's a reason why Bama's outside the top 10 preseason for the first time in a while. This is a different Alabama, but I just feel like they have warts. The offensive line has major questions with a lot of unproven guys. The defense, while the secondary is one of the best in the country, the front 7 has big questions, particularly the D-line. I mean, where there is no Will Anderson Jr., there is no Dallas Turner, those freaks that they had for so many years. So I just think that they have those issues. And then, again, you talk about going to Knoxville. They've lost the last 2 times Bama's gone to Knoxville. I mean,
That's
you know,
true.
And Tennessee, look at where that falls. Faison Brandon as the quarterback now, he might be hitting his stride by midseason. Now, on the flip side, Keelon Russell could be hitting his stride. So that could be an awesome matchup, you know, on the 3rd Saturday in October. So we'll see when we get there. But again, I've said this, I'm like a broken record when I've talked about the SEC this year. Going to the 9-game conference slate, it's great for the TV revenue you're getting, but as far as trying to weather the storm of a tough schedule, I mean, Spencer, a few years ago, we were talking about Bama and Georgia. Can they go 12-0 or 11-1? 10-2 is now the bar because people are looking and saying the schedule's it's so hard. Like you can't go unscathed. You're going to lose 2 games. Just about everybody in the league, it feels like.
No, welcome to How the Other Half Lives, Gordy. It's great to have you here in the modern era of college football.
Well, we still have the Power 4 component for non-cons,
which I appreciate. Which I appreciate. I am fully supportive of that. No one has ripped I don't think Craig Sheeman of Locked On Big Ten has ripped the Big Ten as much as I have ripped the Big Ten for not making everyone play that game. I'm just seriously considering what you've said. Like Georgia, Texas A&M, LSU, even though 2 of the 3 at home, gosh, it feels like 2 losses in there. I trust Georgia way more than Alabama.
Well, and let me give you real quick. I've had a few people tell me, including MattStallVale.com, he thinks Bama loses at Kentucky week 2. Will Stein.
Okay.
With Kenny Minchie, I think that's going to be, and the defense has some dudes. Look, if Keelon Russell struggles at all, Kentucky. That game against Ole Miss week 2 last year. Remember, it was Kentucky Ole Miss. That was a 1-score game down the stretch of the fourth quarter. This ain't Mark Stoops conservative. This is Will Stein, maybe willing to let it all hang out because. Talk about playing with house money. Nobody's expecting Kentucky to do anything in year 1. So
that's true. That's very. By the way, sneaky talented transfer portal class.
Yeah,
I'm unsure about Kenny Minchie right now. I heard something a while back that was like, I don't know if that's like actually but anyway.
Didn't he get the most out of Dante Moore? I mean,
no. Will Stein, no doubt. Has got a great track record with quarterbacks. Ask Oregon fans if he has his quarterbacks cutting it loose a lot, but that's a different that's a different conversation. The numbers are really good.
Joe Sloan coached Jaden Daniels at LSU, so just saying.
Just saying. That's worthy. I might have to revise my Alabama prediction there. I don't know. All because of the wise words of Chris Gordy of Locked On SEC. We pivot to the Big Ten to wrap today's show. A program that is never bad, but is never great. Could they actually be something great or better than average this year? Let's discuss and find out. First, this episode brought to you by our friends over at Odoo. Running a business shouldn't feel like you're trying to connect a bunch of systems that were never designed to work together. One app for accounting, another for inventory, another for sales, and somehow none of them talk to each other. That's no good. That's where Odoo comes in. Odoo is an all-in-one business management software that brings every part of your business together in one powerful platform. From sales and accounting to inventory and marketing, everything works in one place. Odoo is one platform to manage, grow, and scale your business. The best organizations know success isn't just about talent like LSU. It's about having everyone working toward the same goal. It's what Lane Kiffin has to implement this year. That's true in sports, just like it is in business. You don't want to be all over the place. You don't want to be haphazard. You don't want to be disconjointed. You want to have everything working on the same path. Great organizations win because operations matter. That's why you should get Odoo. Try for free today at odoo.com/locked on. That's odoo.com/locked on. Check out Odoo today. All right, the Minnesota Golden Gophers are such a model of consistency in the Big Ten, have been for a very long time. We keep asking the same question. Is it ever going to be different one way or another? PJ Fleck is way too successful. He's, I don't believe, lost a bowl game since he got to Minnesota. He wins 7 to 9 games just about every single year. He's way too successful to fire. If he were to ever have one bad season, would a lot of, being stuck in the middle lead Minnesota to make a change? I don't know. I doubt it. He's probably got some win equity built in there. Look, I've heard him at Big Ten Media Days before, and he's an interesting guy. No doubt about it. He's got a unique personality, but he's energetic. He gets fired up. He loves football. He loves Minnesota. And you know what? His roster doesn't completely stink. One of the best pass rushers in not just the Big Ten, but I think the entire country is playing for the Minnesota Golden Gophers this year. Now, they lose Coy Parrish from their secondary. He goes over to Oregon, probably to try to win more than 7 or 8 games and also to not have to be a two-way player. My biggest questions for Minnesota are twofold. Number one, Drake Lindsey at quarterback. Is he more than just a high-level game manager? Was it kind of what he looked like last year? I mean, there were so many carbon copies of Drake Lindsey that I feel like I've watched in the Big Ten over the years, but he's a young quarterback. So he's got a year of experience now. He wasn't bad. He was solid. He's fine. Not special, not carrying the team, but not losing you that many games, quite frankly. He's just not winning you that many games. He's stuck in the middle. But guess what? If Iowa had stuck in the middle quarterback play, they might have been in the college football playoff a couple times over the years. I'm just throwing that out there. So the Golden Gophers have to get that answered. Is Drake Lindsey exactly what he was? Better than what he was? Worse than what he was? I think there's a decent chance that he levels up. Minnesota's roster is not terrible. It's not elite. But they got a couple playmakers on both sides of the ball that I like. Running back room, very strong position group. My number 2 question, though, offensive line. This is where I see them run into problems time and again when they go up against the big boys in the Big Ten. They get mauled up front, frankly, on both sides of the ball, more than a coach like PJ Fleck probably wants to. So they play one of the most underrated non-conference games in all of college football in week 2. They host Mississippi State. And long ago, Jaron Spohr and I have Locked On Mississippi State on this very show, talked about that game for a segment because the stakes for Minnesota in that game, I don't think are particularly high. Of course, they want to win the game, beat a team from the SEC, regardless of who it is, and you want to win more games than you lose. Duh. Obviously. The stakes on the other side, though, are significant. If Jeff Lebby loses that game, it's his 3rd year at Mississippi State. Where are the other wins going to come from? I don't know. If you can't go on the road and beat Minnesota, I know it's a tough place to play. Underrated home environment, the Minnesota Golden Gophers. So I have been watching for years. PJ Fleck, very quietly, sometimes not as quietly when he's in a microphone, just beating teams that are in Tier 3 and Tier 2 of the Big Ten that he goes back and forth with. And then he plays a Tier 1 team, and they tend to get beat pretty soundly. Go look at their scores over the years against Ohio State. Last year they went to Oregon on a Friday night, and that game was over at halftime. But Minnesota was a good team. They just are never a great team, and they're never a terrible team. They're just always solid. It's what Wisconsin was for a long time. Wisconsin, it felt like, had a higher ceiling at moments, but now Wisconsin has dropped their floor below where the Golden Gophers have been. They play last week of the regular season, of course, in an underrated rivalry game. So I think they will beat Mississippi State week 2 at home. For Jeff Lebby's sake, I hope I'm wrong. Eastern Illinois, Akron are the other 2 non-conference games. But hey, look at that. A Big Ten team. Look at that. We got to pause the graphic just to give a round of applause. A Big Ten team playing a Power 4 non-conference game. That a boy. Woo! Yeah, row that boat to a quality matchup that people should actually want to tune into. They open Big Ten play at Washington. Ouch. Why don't you ask, everybody in the Big Ten how easy it is to go there and win? You know the only teams in their Big Ten era that have gone to Husky Stadium and won? Their names are Oregon and Ohio State. In the years that they did it, they made the college football playoff. That was last year. Ohio State went to the quarterfinals, and Oregon went to the semifinals. So those are the only teams that have gotten there. I don't think Minnesota is there. I think Washington's quite good. I'd like Washington to win that game. The opportunities for marquee wins for PJ Fleck are right there for the taking. Washington is one of those games. Michigan is one of those games. You better beat Purdue on October 10th. Then you have a bye. And then you play Iowa. That's another one of those games. And look, they're not Tier 1. I don't think any of those teams are in Tier 1 because I think those are 3 teams until I'm given information to the contrary. I think Oregon, Indiana, Ohio State are top of the Big Ten in that first tier. Good news. Minnesota only plays one. October 31st, they have to go to Bloomington. All right, I know that that's going to be a loss. But then after that, they host UCLA. They travel to Penn State. They host Northwestern. They travel to Wisconsin. PJ Fleck could rack up the wins once again. If you answer quarterback and you answer offensive line, what exactly is not to like? What am I missing? I don't know. You tell me. I mean, I'm really intrigued. So I think the floor here for Minnesota, I think the floor is 5 wins. I mean, that's baseline minimum. I do not believe that they can beat Indiana. I don't think there's a single other team on here that they cannot beat. I don't believe they will beat Michigan. I don't believe they will beat Washington. I don't think it's completely insane to think that they could win that game. I certainly think they could beat Penn State. A better Penn State team darn near lost. They needed a fake punt a couple of years ago when James Franklin was still there. And don't tell me that UCLA, Northwestern, Wisconsin are ahead of Minnesota, because they're not in no meaningful way. So I have certainly wound up with my record predictions going into this year, and this has me very, very worried. I have Minnesota at 7-5. They could very well go 8-4. Their win total is 6.5. I'm off by half a win on way too many predictions. Our friends at FanDuel are just setting really good win totals. They're making it challenging to be way one way or way the other. But this isn't over for me. I like Minnesota to go over. Do I think they're leveling up? No. No. I mean, they need to beat Michigan. Beating Michigan, which is a game that they have at home on October 3rd, to me, that's the game that'll tell us whether Minnesota's leveling up or whether it's the same old ordeal. Same old, or, hey, here comes Minnesota, that Michigan game. I know that Michigan, who I talked about earlier this week on the show, is not someone I view as a Big Ten title contender this year because it's year one for Kyle Whittingham. I still think they're really good. I still think their roster's good. I still think they're beating Oklahoma, who was in the college football playoff last year, and just extended their coach because they feel like he's the right guy. And Brent Venables is good. He's done a good job, no question. So I'm 7-5 for Minnesota. When in doubt, pick them in the middle. Appreciate everyone listening. I will see you next time. And until then, hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day.